It's pretty amazing, really, how many leaders decide to make rules, laws, policies, operating procedures that don't fall within the realm of logic, of practical relationships, of the laws of the universe. In fact, there are a lot of policies and rules and laws and ideas that are sent down from leadership, if you will, that make no sense at all in the common everyday application of life. And I think sometimes leaders forget that you can't outlaw gravity. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. Now, you may be thinking outlaw, meaning like I'm going to make it illegal to use gravity. Well, that would be silly as well, unless you lived on another planet that didn't actually operate on gravity. I mean, everything we do on our planet that has to do with friction, with motion, it all goes back to gravity. It's one of the laws that has no superseding law except the law of lift. But what I mean by that is you can't write laws that make the law of gravity illegal any more than you can write laws that are stronger, more powerful, and more required to be observant than the law of gravity. And yet we see every day that we have organizations who have internal policies that seem to run contradictory to the natures of human being. That the human being has reciprocal ways of behaving as well. If you treat me unfairly, I'm going to act in a frustrated way. That's just natural. But to make laws, to make internal policies, to drive our own behavior by written edict that doesn't make any sense to the normal human relationship, well, that doesn't make any sense either. I see a lot of leaders who want to dictate how people will act or react. They want to tell you how you're supposed to converse with that person. They want to tell you what language to use. They want to tell you how you're supposed to treat them. They want to dictate to you what your personality should be. It's really hard for me day to day just to keep my own personality in check. Just for me to manage my own frustrations, for me to keep my own tongue when there's nothing good to say. When there's no benefit for me to speak up, there's nothing good to come of it. It's hard enough for me personally in my own life, in my own area of responsibility, to know when to shut up. But for me to try to make rules about when everyone else should hold their tongue, not have an opinion, and be silent, well, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I realize that the whole First Amendment speech thing of you have the right to speak except when it might cause harm to someone else, such as yelling fire in a theater. I get that. That makes sense to me. I understand that giving people a right to free speech also is not a natural law like the law of gravity, meaning there are laws that can supersede it. With gravity, the only one that supersedes it is the law of lift, which says basically if you get something moving fast enough, the amount of air over it versus under it will actually change, and the air pressure underneath will cause it to rise, especially if you create a bit of a curve like on the top of the wing of an aircraft. If you get it moving fast enough, the gap of the air above it will actually create a vacuum, and the air below it will lift it up. Just look at an F4, proof that anything with enough power can make a boxcar fly. So the law of lift supersedes the law of gravity, meaning it has the authority to change the law of gravity. But when it comes to human nature, when it comes to the way we respond and react to things, who really has the authority to tell us to do differently? Well, there are those who have the authority to punish us if we don't. There are those who have the ability to take our jobs away, to give credit to someone else, to take our paycheck away. There are people who have the authority in our life to influence laws or the outcome of us breaking the law pretty significantly. Unfortunately, sometimes those rights, the privileges, the power to enforce laws don't necessarily mean that the law itself was just. They don't necessarily mean that the rule that was put in place made sense. It just meant that the individual who decided to exercise their privilege or their right to put that law in place and to bring about the punishment behind that law, that they're exercising their privilege or they're exercising their right. See, I get it that the whole concept of white privilege falls in that category. That those who have the gold make the rules. Unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to that, historically speaking. But I also see that just reversing those laws in the concept of, well, now we're going to punish you if you do exactly the opposite, doesn't have any more merit than the unjust law did in the first place. I think the golden rule is probably the best law. I think when it comes to leadership, the golden rule should be the primary law behind everything that we do. It's like the law of gravity. It's that rudimentary in its existence. It's that base in its dominance in our human lives. And that is, however you want to be treated, well, that's how you should treat other people. If you want people to be rude to you, well,